Hello and welcome back to Talking Europe. The Mexicoization of France. That's how French authorities described a recent shootout over drug trafficking. The shooting in a formerly peaceful corner of Western France degenerated into a massive fight between rival gangs involving hundreds of people. We're at a tipping point, the French Interior Minister responded. But this is far from being only a French problem. Europol, the EU's law enforcement agency, says that several member states are experiencing unprecedented levels of violence related to drugs. Europol also notes that about half of murders in the EU are linked to drug trafficking. To discuss this problem and also the social impacts, I'm joined by Belgian Green MEP Saskia Brikmont. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
And I'm also joined by Swedish European People's Party MEP Thomas Tobé. Hello to you.
Hello.
And of course, both of you are on the Committee on Civil Liberties, Justice and Home Affairs. So Saskia Brikmont, perhaps tell us a bit about the situation in Belgium. There was an outcry when this 11-year-old girl was shot and killed in Antwerp, and a lot of people are worried about what's happening here.
Yes, of course, and the situation is worrying, and violence is gaining levels, unprecedented levels indeed, but it's unfortunately only the tip of the iceberg. European agencies like Europol have been warning our member states for many years now about the increase of organized crime and narco traffic, which means that prevention should have been the priority. And now, of course, there is a political reaction because of this violence, because of media attention as well, that needs to be taken seriously. From tackling organized crime to working on social communities.
Yeah. Thomas Tobé, so what about the situation in Sweden? Again, you've spoken about this worrying rise in gang-related violence in your home country.
I mean, unfortunately, in Sweden, I would say that we have what I would call a crime epidemic. I mean, we have gang wars related to drug trafficking. We even have what I would call child soldiers. We are basically now that we have one shooting every day in Sweden.
Child soldiers, did you say?
Yeah, I mean, basically,
who are
what we
paid
see
by
from the criminal gangs is they now recruit very, very young people. We talk about 13, 14, 15 years olds that are actually involved now in the shootings in Sweden. And this is something that we haven't seen before to this extent. And of course, this is extremely worrying. And of course, national authorities in Sweden and the Swedish government is doing a major shift in the policy to combat this. But for me, it's very clear that this is unfortunately a European problem. Yeah. 7 out of 10 criminal networks are active in more than 3 member states at the same time.
Yeah. Saskia Brikmont, so why do you think it's been so difficult to have a more effective European response?
Well, I think the focus has been mainly towards fighting terrorism and Islamist terrorism, and rightfully so. I think it's obviously a priority, but nevertheless, choices have been made also not to put the necessary means in both prevention and fighting corruption, money laundering, which are the roots of organized crime. Financial crime is highly linked to the traffic in drugs. It's a European problem. We need to tackle that at EU level, at national level. Human resources, financial resources have to be invested, but also a better coordination at international level, because drugs are coming from abroad, Latin America.
There's been an increase in supply, which is well documented in some of these Latin American countries. But Thomas Tobé, what would you suggest as concrete answers to this in terms of, for example, common port strategy? Because you've mentioned that when there was a clampdown on the port of Antwerp in Belgium, the trade switched to Helsingborg in Sweden.
No, of course, there's no one silver bullet to solve this. I mean, there's several things. Of course, we need a stronger port strategy, because we know that that's where we will have the best chance to attract the drugs at first. But basically, I would say we need a true operational Europol. And we need to double up, I would say, the agency. And we also need to take a different view on this, because many times our authorities at national level, they have a pretty good idea of who are the gang leaders, who are the people that are actually quite dangerous to our society. But we see that these kind of people they move pretty freely around Europe. For example, in Sweden, we have 600 gang leaders. They are currently living their life on the sunny coast in Spain, living a luxurious life, you know, being away from any chance of having problems with the police agency, for example.
Yeah, so is it really a problem of not having enough resources, or simply that the existing police authorities are not communicating as they should be? Is that actually the priority that should be here?
I think they're already working together, but the thing is that justice is underfinanced. Police and the investigation capacities of the police are also underinvested. So this is part of the problem, of course. We need coordination. We need coordination at EU level, that's obvious. But we need also implementation of EU law. Again, when it comes to fighting corruption and money laundering. We have the European Prosecutor Office that needs to be enforced also, and stronger mandates, we need it. We also need specialized chambers, offices in the member states. And I insist on both sides, because for many years, security answers have been provided, sanctions and rights, so criminalization of the matter. Of course, we have to sanction, but we also have to rehabilitate afterwards. We have to invest in many areas, including in health and social areas. We're talking about children, indeed. Why is it so? Because the criminals use vulnerable people. They go where the vulnerabilities are to use and to target children, poor neighborhoods, where they can exploit the people that need basically money. Right?
Yeah.
So if we have active social policies, also a stronger social Europe, it goes hand in hand with the fight against organized crime.
Of course, I mean, I agree that we also need social policy, for sure. But I would also say that we have a political momentum now, because for many, many years, we could see from the member states, they were basically saying, this is our competence, stay away, we don't want to give up too much power at European level. But I would say that now we actually do have a possibility to have more EU-wide investigations, for example, and even have an operational Europol that actually could, at the same time, work in several member states, of course, together with local authorities. This has not been an opportunity before, but we need to take this opportunity now, because this is basically about the safety, of course, for our citizens, but it's also to stop this. Because if we don't stop the criminal networks, they will keep growing, they will keep recruiting young people into a very bad life.
So how would you use the social policies to stop that, to stop the younger people being recruited, for example, into these gangs?
Well, work at neighborhood level. You know, the police forces that are on the ground effectively know the neighborhood, they know the people, they know how it works. They have to be connected to investigation teams and to the justice system also, to have a proper follow-up and quick follow-up. Yeah. That's lacking at member states level. That's why our answers are slightly different, because for many years now, all these portfolios have been mainly managed by right-wing parties, offering security solutions. More means in Europol means also that we need a democratic system at EU level to scrutinize the role of a police force at EU level. We don't have it for the moment at all. I think it needs also to be think at the ground and to have action on the ground and to invest in human and financial resources at all levels in our member states, and to have a better cooperation at EU level through Europol, what Europol already does, to help the interconnection between the member states, because indeed the criminals do not care for borders, but also at international level. And Europol has this role to link the member states and to link the international fight against criminality.
I mean, of course, I mean, I agree on your point that we need social policy, but it's not that easy. I mean, it's very hard to say that a country like Sweden, that we don't invest in social policy. We do. But the problem is for many of the young, especially men in the suburbs, what they see is that crime pays. And we don't do enough to take away the leadership in these gangs. And that is really what we need to do, because I really think that we need to be tougher on the criminal gangs. If we don't do that, all the social policy that we will try to put in will not have any effect at all.
What do you think about, though, the sentencing regime? So the fact that users of drugs are obviously criminalized in many member states. Is there a problem there that the justice system is coming down on them rather than on the big crime bosses?
I mean, I know the situation is different in many member states, but I mean, if I look at what we are trying to do in Sweden right now, we are more focusing on the gangs and their activities, basically what they sell in drugs, and try to go as far up in the chain as possible. And for many people that are using, perhaps sometimes it's more efficient if they can get care, if they can have more talks with authorities, than perhaps go to prison.
I think that we also need really to tackle at all levels, again, the sources and the roots of organized crime, which is money. Vast majority of organized crime, 86%, it's also in the report of Europol, is laundering money and is linked to corruption.
And as you've said in the debate, it means putting pressure on other countries outside, like Dubai or places that are far away from Europe.
That are currently protecting, indeed, criminals. And this is also through cooperation between the EU and such countries that we need to tackle this phenomenon. Because what happens in our member states is, as I said, the tip of the iceberg. Violence and people and small dealers being used, exploited by organized crime and criminals, actually. We need to go deeper in the answers that we provide. And at EU level, we just adopted a new set of legislation, directives on anti-money laundering and combating corruption. The key is there, and we really need to work on that also with the international partners.
We'll see if there's more will at the EU level going forward on this issue. But for now, let's wrap it up there and thank my guests Saskia Brikmont and Thomas Taubé. Glad you could join us for this discussion here on Talking Europe.
Thank you.